The international community can be likened to a school. In it, the leaders of the world's nations are the teachers, and the different citizens across the globe are the students. Unfortunately, for Eritrea and Ethiopia, we see that they're more like substitute teachers. They're given the same title and status as regular teachers, but no one listens to them and no one gives them respect, unfortunately. A publication by BBC on April 4th of this year elaborates for us that one reason as to why so many people look at Eritrea and Ethiopia and don't take them seriously is because the previous federal administration of Ethiopia was notorious for its liking of the rapper 50 Cent. He's known for his line, "Hey shawty, it's your birthday. We're gonna party like it's your birthday. We're gonna sip Bacardi like it's your birthday." Imagine your president saying that. But the publication goes on to elaborate that affairs within the countries are dire. And that's because ever since Eritrea split off from Ethiopia in the 20th century, there's been constant civil conflict between the two. In fact, from 1998 to 2000, there was a severe border war between the two that resulted in almost 70,000 civilian casualties. Ever since then, civil conflict has been continuing. But in recent developments, we see that the new administration within Ethiopia, led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, has agreed that it wants to pursue better relations with Eritrea, a landmark statement. But seeing as how no one has ever seen this happen before, we have to ask today's question in order to better understand affairs in the tumultuous region of the Horn of Africa. Can Ethiopia and Eritrea make peace? The answer is actually yes, because of recent cooperative developments. And that's because of three key reasons. First, because of an agreement on the border. Second, because of an agreement to combat ethnic conflict. And third, because of an endeavor to pursue economic cooperation. Now, in any classroom, there are fights over who gets what and what's whose. And we see that this is one of the key reasons as to why there have been so many dire situations between the two countries of Ethiopia and Eritrea. Specifically, an article released by All Africa on June 20th, just a few days ago, elaborates for us that Ethiopia and Eritrea have never agreed on their actual border. In fact, in 2000, an Algiers agreement was put into place by the United Nations that distincted the border between the two countries, but Ethiopia never recognized it. Because of that lack of recognition, we see that there was a great war between the two that not only led to infrastructural deficit, but also provided severe economic detriments for both countries. But that's something that's going to change, because Abiy Ahmed now, under his EPR party, the new political administration within Ethiopia, has actually recognized the border between the two countries. In and of itself, therefore recognizing the sovereignty of the country of Eritrea, something that Ethiopia has never done before, and also branching towards political cooperation. And this will make progress, because another article, this time by Al Jazeera on that same day, goes on to articulate for us that as a direct consequence of this, we see that both of them aren't going to be fighting over the main thing that they used to have an issue over. Due to this, it's clear that not only can they reach stability through peace agreements, but they also don't have something to conflict over anymore. Not only this, it's also important to realize that within the two countries, ethnic conflict has been one of the main factors as to why instability has been so rampant. But that's another thing that's going to be combated through cooperative developments, signifying for us the second reason as to why Ethiopia and Eritrea can definitely make peace. For this, we should view an article released by the Washington Post, also on June 20th of 2018, which goes on to convey for us that along the border of Ethiopia and Eritrea, we see that there are two sub-ethnicities of Arabs and Tigrayans. Tigrayans are predominantly within Ethiopia, while Arabs are from Eritrea originally. And those two have been in disputes over land for years now. Ever since the border war almost 18 years ago, they've been engaged in constant conflict which hasn't been stopped. And that's something that's actually being combated now, because another article, this time by the Washington Examiner on June 20th of this year, elaborates for us that the current administration within Ethiopia has decided that it's actually going to give those Arab people their land back. Not only will it provide reparations for them through this new apportioned land that will also be arable, allowing for them to farm on it, but on top of this, it's also going to help the other individuals from Ethiopia. Now, anyone would guess the Tigrayans, the people from Ethiopia who took the land of Arabs, would be upset by this, but they're not going to be, because the land that they already have will be kept for them, while new land that has not been taken by anyone will be apportioned for the Arabs. This, in and of itself, solves an ethnic conflict which was not being solved for a very long time now. And now both countries have not only agreed to address it, but they've recognized it and are starting to deal with it. And this, in and of itself, provides great strides for both nations and the region of East Africa as a whole. Now, when I mentioned 50 cent earlier, a lot of you thought that I was going to refer to the GDP of Ethiopia and Eritrea. Many of you think that's 50 cents. It's not. And I'm not going to use that canned joke. I did. This time, a publication released by the Center for Strategic and International Studies on March 19th of this year goes on to explain for us that it's no surprise to anyone that East Africa is one of the more economically unstable regions of the world. And one reason as to why that's the case is because of the lack of regional cooperation, especially on a financial front. But that's something that they can provide a solution for. And that's simply through pursuing the engagement of some sort of supranational organization and trying to make some sort of economic front. In fact, another article by NPR in March of this year goes on to communicate for us that if these countries decide to do this, that they can provide some sort of unified and stable front that will bring other prominent investors, like those of the nations of Australia, Great Britain, and others, to go into their mineral-rich countries and try to help them without exploiting them. This would bring for them economic viability, the likes of which they've never seen before, and would provide financial stability that they need in the coming future. Because both countries are going to try and do this due to the new installment of a federal administration within Ethiopia, we see that it's clear that in the coming years, not only is the conflict going to be resolved, but they're going to work together to make each other better, therefore bringing about peace in the region. So when coming back to today's question, will Ethiopia and Eritrea make peace? The answer, once again, is absolutely yes, because of recent cooperative developments. And we can see that specifically on three key fronts. First, because of agreements on the border. Second, because of a pursuit to quell ethnic conflict. And third, an effort to pursue an economic cooperative front through regional cooperation. So, although we know that like in any classroom or any school, there were fights between these two teachers, it's clear that moving into the future, they will be working together to better the lives and the environment of their students.
Congratulations on finals and a great speech. I'd just like to ask you a couple of questions.
Absolutely. I don't bite. It's okay.
So kind of an overarching question. You mentioned that Ethiopia wanted to join the Algiers Peace Cooperation Deal in 2000. Why has Ethiopia reversed its stance now?
No, Ethiopia did not recognize the Algiers Agreement by the United Nations in 2000. The thing is that now they've decided to do that, and that's because of the new administration under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed within Ethiopia.
With that in mind, now you mentioned that Prime Minister Ahmed is a new prime minister in Ethiopia, and considering agreements and peace like this require a lot of political will, how does political polling in Ethiopia reflect the Ethiopia-Eritrea relationship?
Well, seeing as how in the recent elections he won by a sweeping margin amongst his people, and this was one of his hallmark campaign proposals, I imagine that the Ethiopian people aren't too upset about it.
Okay, and moving on into more of the body of your speech in your third point, you mentioned economic cooperation between Ethiopia and Eritrea as an incentive.
Yes.
But Ethiopia's economy is 8 times the size of that of Eritrea's. So what exactly does it stand to benefit?
Well, you have to look at the fact that both of them are third world countries. As a result of this, even though they might be mineral rich, as I elaborated upon in my third point, they don't have the fundamental sources and tools needed to make the most of those resources. They can do that through outside investment, but they've never been able to do that because different countries like Australia and Britain that want to invest in East Africa don't see any sort of unified front. Through economic cooperation and some sort of supranational organization, they not only provide for that, but move themselves over by making each other better.
Well, Ethiopia actually has been cooperating across the East Africa region in its own regional economic cooperation group for years. So how is this agreement actually going to give Ethiopia a concrete advantage, especially when Eritrea has so little to offer?
So first, within that region, Ethiopia is only cooperating with about 2 countries, mostly Kenya. Past that, that's not brought about any economic viability because there was political corruption in those areas. Now there's new leadership within Ethiopia, the forefront leader, and they're actually going to include Eritrea in this while trying to make about a new economic agreement between the two.
And finally, how has Eritrea reacted to the imposition or the agreement of the peace deal? Have they started to move forward and provide conferences? What's exactly happened?
As I touched, Eritrea is thrilled about it, and they finally get the chance to branch towards stability.
Okay. Great speaking to you.
You're great.